Okay, so let's move on in the interest of time. Our next speaker is Mr. Adly Yusrizal, who is the Chief Representative of BRI Hong Kong Representative Office. As Mr. Yomi just said, BRI is not the Belt and Road Initiative. It's actually Bank Rakyat Indonesia, which means People's Bank, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Adly is currently the Chief Representative in Hong Kong, and he has been with the bank for over 11 years. He's specialized in the SME businesses and also has developed a deep understanding in the field of project financing, agro-business, trade, renewable energy, and also financing multiple national construction projects. And he's very keen to act as the bridge between Hong Kong and Indonesia. So I would like to invite Mr. Adly to address us. So, Adly, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raymond. And thank you so much for Dashun Foundation for having me today.
By the way, BRI is the largest state-owned bank in Indonesia.
Yes, Mr. Raymond. Yes, I'm very understand that BRI term is very famous and well known and popular in Hong Kong businesses and China businesses because it's related with Belt and Road Initiative. So not confused with Bank BRI, just like Mr. Raymond and Mr. Yomi previously mentioned. Please allow me to also introduce at a glance about Bank BRI. So to start, Mr. Heri as the Director General of Infrastructure Financing of Public Works and Housing, Mr. Dewa as the Ambassador of Indonesia to Zimbabwe and Zambia, and Mr. Yomi Eka as the Consul for Economic Affairs of Indonesia Consulate in Hong Kong for Hong Kong and Makassar, and Mr. Chong Sun Yen as the International Tax Transaction Services Partner of EY. And distinguished participants, a very good afternoon. Again, please allow me to introduce a bit about Bank BRI before I cover some of the general overview introduction of construction industry that also cover the strengths, weaknesses, and some business opportunities. So Bank BRI is one of the state-owned banks in Indonesia, and actually it's also one of the oldest bank in Indonesia. And we have presence nationwide, not only in Java Island, which is now is the main island that contributes the biggest economy to Indonesia, but also in other islands from the east to the west, from the north to the south, and also with the long history of our activities in Indonesia economy, we have been participating in supporting the businesses, including to those in construction sectors. And our clients are ranging from not only from state-owned construction companies in Indonesia, but also from corporate, private, and also from SME clients. So continuing to our main topic on the overview of construction industry in Indonesia, as we know that the construction industry influences Indonesia economic development, and it is an essential contributor to the process of development by providing the physical foundations of which development efforts and improve living standards. And the construction industry builds and provides infrastructure for other economic sectors such as agriculture, energy, tourism, manufacturing, trade, and others. So the importance of the construction industry to the economy can be measured by its contributions to the gross domestic product or GDP, its contribution to investment, and the amount of manpower employed. So, however, as we all know, at the moment, with the presence of the pandemic and to prevent the spread of COVID-19, the government imposed large-scale social restrictions, which included business closures and reduced operating hours for public transport. It also postponed the development of a number of infrastructure projects in Indonesia. So we can see the impact on the GDP growth rate of the construction sector that dropped in 2020. If you can see on the top right-hand side chart, our growth rate GDP of construction sector dropped in 2020. However, we can also see the growth rate of GDP sector to the GDP growth rate of construction sector started to recover on the first quarter of 2021. We can also oversee and observe the development of construction sector in Indonesia from other factors. Similar to GDP growth rate of construction sector from the previous slide, GDP growth according to expense also shows an increase in quarter 1, 2021. As you can see on the right-hand chart, the trend is a bit similar with the previous GDP growth rate from the construction sector. So we are hoping the trend can continue and remain stable in the following quarters, especially if the government and all of us together can contain the spread of the pandemic. So on the left side, it's the realization of the direct investment that also already covered by Mr. Yomi. We see it's a bit steady, even though there is a slight increase in the quarter 1, 2021. And one of the biggest drivers for the GDP is the fixed capital formation, which contributes as much as roughly 30% of the economy. So we are also hoping the conducive economic climate and the implementation of the policies of the government along with the central banks will also drive to the improvement of the fixed capital formation to Indonesia. And in terms of the national budget 2021, especially on infrastructure, if we assume COVID-19 ends in 2021, or not ends, really ends, but at least we can contain the spread with a reasonable number of cases. We can reopen the economy more optimistically. We can say that 2021 may be a momentum of the growth of the construction industry. Infrastructure development projects has been delayed, postponed, and during the pandemic will be back on track. And in its 2022 to 2024 medium-term development plan, the government prioritizes economic development with an estimated budget, a big amount. And among its targets are, if we can group, its basic services like flat and special houses, dams, and also connectivities like roads, bridges, railway. So even though now we are experiencing the short-term risk, especially from the pandemic, but the long-term view is still overweighted the prospects. Late in 2020, the government revealed that the infrastructure spending in 2021 will be in the 400 and more than 400 trillion, still higher than the budgeted pre-pandemic level. This shows the government's commitment to providing infrastructure for the country's ever-growing population. The ongoing COVID-19 vaccination program should further provide optimism among investors, anticipating a return to normalcy in the country's construction sector. And this is also some of the news related with the projects that has been also covered comprehensively by Mr. Harry before. And these are some projects that are also disclosed already by the national media. Also has been covered previously. So we move on to the construction industry key players. Indonesia's construction industry is saturated actually with hundreds and thousands of companies. However, many of which are small and medium-sized contractors. From a competitive landscape, although the market consists of many players, state-owned contractors have a strategic position in the market, especially in government projects. In recent years, the key players have benefited from a big ticket size of infrastructure development by the government. So, furthermore, apart from being resilient to economic downturns, government contracts carry a lower risk of payment. Hence, it provides better financial visibility. So, if we see the market share based on revenue on the left side of the chart, or the left side chart, we can see there are top 5 construction companies that are, we can say, dominating the market share of Indonesia construction industry based on the revenue. Among those, Waskita, Wika, Utama Karya, and Adikarya. And although Indonesia's construction industry consists of so many companies, as I mentioned earlier, many of them are small and medium-sized contractors, which act as subcontractors of large construction companies. So, approximately 89% of them are categorized as a small companies, and 8% categorized as a medium, and 3% categorized as a big or large company. So the size of most of the small size, they are focusing on the building projects in building, and the second biggest is on the other project. So this, when we talk about the size of the contractors is classified based on the paid-in capital to the company, experience, and then the human resources that also cover the expertise of the human resource. So, based on the classification, each category of the company size can entitle certain contract limit per projects. So, I'll go through this quickly. For small companies, they can join the tender of a project around 1.5 million Hong Kong dollar. So for the medium, they can join or they can participate the tender of the project around 25 to 26 maximum 25 to 26 million Hong Kong dollar. And for the big company contractors, they can bid for the projects above 26 million Hong Kong dollar. So that's the tiering of the size of the construction players in Indonesia. So if we talk about the demand of the construction sector, again, the coronavirus pandemic has resulted in reduced construction activities following the large-scale social restrictions imposed by the government to curb the outbreak, consequently delaying project deliveries. The decline in demand for the construction sector during the pandemic was indicated by the declining business income and value of completed construction along with the construction of economic activity during the COVID-19 era. That is shown on the drop in Q1 in 2020, which is in Indonesia. It's actually the starting period of the COVID-19 pandemic hit. So demand was weaker. Out caused by COVID-19. However, it is expected to start picking up steadily on the next quarters. And this is the Indonesia Wholesale Price Index for building and construction from January. There was a sharp decline in the construction price index in 2020 as the pandemic starting to hit Indonesia, even though the price index has slowly shown a recovery until June 2021, the second quarter of 2021. And we can also see the demand of the construction sector by also seeing the banking loans in the sector. So commercial bank lending to the sector has actually slowed since October 2019. In May 2020, growth was only 5.2% year-on-year, with an outstanding value around 360 trillion rupiah. This growth rate is much lower than the 28% year-on-year growth in May 2019, and the 2019 full-year growth was 14.6% year-on-year. But we expect construction demand from the property and real estate sector to slightly increase, as indicated by lending activities by banks. We have, especially when we have been adapting with the COVID-19 situation for more than a year, until Q2 2021, economic condition continued to recover, shown by improving GDP growth from minus 0.74% in Q1 2021 to 7.07% in Q2 2021. Liquidity is also manageable, with industries' loan-to-deposit ratio stood at 80.8%, and consumption and demand, which include, among others, the economic recovery program, lowering the BI rate and relaxing loan-to-value So this tax exemption and cutting interest rates have been a catalyst for increased loan demand, especially on the property market, that leads to high sales for new residentials in Q2 2021, which is 13.95% year-on-year. And the risk of lending to the construction sector, as indicated by the non-performing loan ratio, is relatively under control, where commercial banks are also proactively implementing restructuring programs to some of their clients. So next, these are some of the government regulations in the construction industry, and we highlighted some of the strengths and weaknesses in the construction industry. Among other strengths and weaknesses, there are digitizing in the construction sector. This can bring positive impact to the construction industry, and the government support in the construction sector, especially after the establishment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund or Indonesia Investment Authority, and also the implementation of COVID-19 vaccination. On the other hand, the government also increasing the support for the infrastructure development costs reflected in the state budget from year to year. And then the other strength point here is the growing of construction sector is proportional to the growth of the Indonesian economy. So with the economic recovery, construction sector is predicted also grow parallelly. And lastly is the growing population. As we know, Indonesia has a very big middle class size, and is predicted to keep growing in the next several years. It will also bring the opportunity to new commercial and residential projects. And although weaknesses, although we've seen some strengths, there are also some weaknesses. But we see the weaknesses as the also opportunity. There are room for improvement. When we see these weaknesses, it means there are room for improvement to see. And then next, these are some the opportunities from lower interest rate, and then prospective infrastructure projects, the establishment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and then economic recovery as the also positive incentive, and potential investors, just like Mr. Yomi already mentioned, from several neighboring countries. And then Fitch also projects, Fitch as the rating agency also projects construction sector will grow on 8.7% for 2021. And these are some other, among others, like we know that there are other opportunities like in roads, in bridges, in housing and the properties, but this might also be a new contenders, which is a prospect of green buildings. As we know that Hong Kong has started this initiative maybe 20-25 years ago by setting up the first green building in Hong Kong in 1996, if I'm not mistaken. Indonesia also has the opportunity, as informed by the International Finance Corporation on the research. Jakarta shows opportunities for green building investment in Indonesia, which is the second largest after Mexico City. This is the prospect, construction prospect in green building. Construction is one of the five sectors in Indonesia that have large potential to adopt a circular approach. And next is related with prospect in logistic and warehouse. As we know that Indonesia is the home of 4 unicorns, big e-commerce, big technology companies, and the logistic is becoming more important for them to support their movement of goods, delivery of goods. So these are the other opportunities on the next page. Then just moving on to the next page on risk on Indonesia construction industry, the alternative financing streams, COVID-19, and then lower number of new contracts at the moment, lower time in investment execution, some delays, the implementation of large-scale social restriction, which is most of them are related with the pandemic. So we are hoping that all of us in Indonesia, the government, all the businesses, the stakeholders are hand on hand to contain and to help managing the risk of this pandemic, so we can go back on track, and the Indonesia economy, especially for the construction sector, will increase and rise on the next following years. So that concludes my material today. I really hope that it gives some insights for every stakeholders that attend the seminar today. And if there is any inquiry related to the presentation or anything else, please do not hesitate to contact me via email or LinkedIn. And thank you for your attention.